Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 3. It's called Brothers. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. This episode, Data randomly goes on a bit of a rampage, takes control of the ship, locks everyone out of every system possible, and then eventually beams down to a planet, where none other than his very creator, Dr. Ninin Sung. Am I saying that right?
Probably not, but
Ninin Sung. Yeah, I was close. So basically, Brent Spiner isn't just playing 2 roles this episode. He was playing 3 roles this episode. And a lot of scenes with all 3 characters in the same room. So that was
busy day.
Time consuming for him. Well, what's interesting is in Picard, we do actually meet Nunez Sung's son at one point, and Brent Spiner also played him. So, but he didn't play him with, like, barring the usual stuff. He didn't play with any makeup though. It was just like, nah, his son's this age now. So, whereas
That's because Brent Spiner was older.
Yeah, obviously. But whereas here, of course, he's in like layers and layers of makeup to be this old man.
Prosthetics look solid.
Yeah, it was better than the old age stuff from like season 1 and whatever. Where the old age. The guy was rapidly aging, that stuff. Like, it was definitely much better looking than that, for sure. To the point where, like, I recognized him more for the voice than I did for his face, and I could sort of see his mouth occasionally when he was talking, but it wasn't like super in your face. It was like, this is nice and subtle, kind of.
No,
almost.
They did a pretty good job with it. I have very little complaints in that regard.
Yeah, so that's the gist of the episode. There's also kind of the actual stakes, because there wouldn't really be that many stakes in this episode, because especially once we realize that there's nothing like. As much as he's doing a lot of things like without permission and he's taking control of things, there's not actually any malicious intent ultimately in what's happening. The only problem is that there's a kid on the Enterprise who's going to die if they don't get to a station for medical treatment. Because
yeah, the episode just opens with Riker like basically interrogating this 9-year-old kid for pulling a prank
on his little brother,
which honestly I think was a pretty solid prank.
Yeah, so he convinced his little brother that his little brother had murdered him during a game, like a laser tag or whatever it was, and the little kid basically ran off into the forest and ate some poisonous berries.
Yeah, well, look, props to the kid. That was a well planned, well organized prank. He had the balloon for the bang, some fake blood packets. I mean, it's solid work.
Yes, of course you would be on this kid's side.
Look, it's not his responsibility that the stupid kid then ate poisonous berries.
All I'm saying is it's very clear you come from a family with multiple brothers, right? I'm just saying, it's very clear. To be honest, I am of the opinion that both of these kids should be put in the airlock and jettisoned into space.
Look, when you have younger brothers who are very annoying, you do what you can to get back at them.
What's wrong with about good old fashioned violence? Why you gotta do all these pranks?
Why not both?
Good old fashioned torture. That's what you do to your siblings. I hear. I don't know.
No, it's true. We did. Yeah.
I'm an only child. This is all somewhat alien to me. But obviously the themes of brotherhood and the younger brother wanting to forgive his older brother kind of plays in a little bit to the because obviously after Data shows up to meet Nunez Sung, then of course LeVar shows up unsuspected.
Swaggers on in.
Yeah, because it wasn't actually even his intention. I mean, Sung thinks he's dead. He didn't know that anyone ever reassembled him. It just so happened that when he turned on Data's homing chip, which is why Data does all the things he does. He, LeVar shows up too, and that's where we get kind of that. And that bastard LeVar, Data almost had the emotion chip, the chip that would let him feel emotions just like a human being. But LeVar switched places with him. Sung gave it to him instead. And now we've got a wild LeVar out there with like super emotions running rampant for a future episode.
Yeah, that's just what LeVar needed. It's already a cocky piece of shit.
So that's the overview of the episode, really. Obviously, the first chunk of it is very much this action packed. Like, there's a bit of confusion, like why is anything happening? Because Wesley's like, I didn't input these coordinates or get us to warp 9 or whatever. And then it's like, oh wait, the bridge is becoming toxic. There's gas or something leaking in. So everyone except Data evacuates because Data can survive, obviously. And then once they're in different positions, like, wait a minute, like Data's actually doing a lot of shady shit here. What's going on? Like Data's like taking control. And that's made me laugh actually because In the first episode of Picard, Picard's been interviewed by a journalist, right? Then they're talking about Data, and the journalist says, "Did you ever like waver in your did you ever like consider that Data might be a hindrance or something like that, right?" And Picard says, "No, not once. I never questioned him once." and, and even when I was talking to Tara about that episode at the time, she says Data's went rogue and like taken over things like numerous times. This is ridiculous. And
I valid point what you're saying here.
Yes.
I would just like to say, last episode you gave me shit for bringing up Picard in reference to anything.
No, but this is funny in hindsight. You were bringing up Picard in sort of like a weird, like, I don't know, like it adds drama to it. It doesn't. This is just funny because Picard tries to pretend this didn't exist.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
But honestly, I have a little bit of a critique of this part of the episode.
Sure.
In that, because obviously it's clear to us immediately that Data's on a weird one.
Yeah, because
he switches when he's in the elevator with the kid.
Do you know what I thought was going to happen actually? Because he's talking to the kid in the turbo lift, and then mid sentence he just stops, and it's like something like a switch has been flipped. Something's wrong with him. I honestly thought that the kid was going to be the only one who knew, and it was going to be some sort of like Kid Die Hard episode where the kid's going to run around and like save everyone. That's what I genuinely thought this episode was going to turn into. And then the kid just kind of disappears for a while, and then someone else finds him, and then
yeah,
whatever.
But my problem is, it plays it as like a bit of a mystery, like, oh, what's going on? Why are we going to this random place? Who's putting these coordinates in? What's happening? And we're kind of there the whole time going, well, we know it's Data, so it loses some of that mystique.
Yeah, we don't know why. We don't know who's behind it.
No, we don't know
yet,
why, but the characters aren't asking why yet. Once they get to that stage, fine, I'm back on board. But there's like a 5-minute chunk where they're going, what's going on? Who's doing this? And I'm like, I'm not really feeling this bit because you gave us the answer before it started.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the episode overall I think is good. I think it's kind of one of these ones where I don't think it really brings up anything that I love about Next Gen that much, in the sense that there's not really any big morals that are kind of brought into play. There's no kind of like it's a lot of good mythology stuff. It's a lot of stuff that kind of adds a little bit of fun things to Data, especially lore. For lore, presumably coming back at some point later, because why wouldn't they? It's not like they've lost the actor. he's
right.
here.
If anything, I think I might like this episode more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
If assuming whatever they do with lore, is good in the future, I think I will like this more in hindsight as part of that arc.
Yeah, is set up for that, because I thought Sung dies at the end. Basically, Lore's throwing him around a little bit, and he's dying from the injuries. And
I mean, he was dying anyway.
Yeah, and he's lying there, and Data asks, because Data doesn't remember anything he did on the ship, and Sung says, "Hey, access the subroutine, blah blah, and it'll give you your memory back." And he sort of goes, "Do," and he does. He's like, "Oh, Commander Riker, apologies, I never realized I was, doing all this." And then he asks Riker, "Okay, can I say goodbye to Dr. Sung?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay," and just didn't leave. I don't think the episode really built up enough for me to care that much that Data was essentially losing his father here. It never quite got to that point.
And it does this bit here where he calls him father for like the first time on his deathbed, and it doesn't have the weight it should. Honestly, I think they squandered it a little bit by playing the moment off earlier with Lore. It was after when they'd done the swap with the chip.
Yeah.
And Sung still thought it was Data, and Lore's calling him father. He's like, oh, you've never done this before.
I'm not sure
the moment almost.
I'm not sure what fixes this outside of like, I feel like devoting the first half of the episode to this mystery action episode, which was entertaining enough, but taking that much time of the episode away from actually developing Data and Sung's like relationship so that it built up to this ending, I think is maybe what hurts it. Maybe what I'm essentially suggesting here is a two-parter, where the first part is like, oh, why is Data went rogue? Why is he taking us to this planet? Everyone's trying to stop him. And then the cliffhanger is that he gets to this place and it's Dr. Sung. It's because I oddly felt like it wasn't that big of a deal when we realized it was him. It felt kind of like,
just like, oh, okay.
And given this is a character that we've heard so much about but never seen, it was kind of weird just how low key it felt. We just kind of stumbled in there. It's like, oh, it's just him.
Yeah, I like when everyone else gets there and they're like, "Isn't he dead?" And Joe's like, "I'm pretty sure this is that guy."
Yeah. So, yeah, kind of a slight mishandling, but I would say more just a lukewarm execution of some fun ideas, because I praised the last episode quite a lot, and I would say the last episode is much better than this one because I think it, from a narrative storytelling point of view, advances a lot of things and how it tells its story, but also the beats that it added to some of the characters were really strong. Here, obviously, this will be stuff that Data remembers, and it'll be important for his character in terms of just raw kind of experience. But in terms of like us actually getting like an excellent execution of the story, it was kind of lacking in that a little bit. So because of that, I think this is a fine episode, one that I think is very watchable and has some interesting bits in it, and little details here or there. And obviously, there's a lot. Probably the most impressive part is when Lore shows up and Data and Lore are kind of like talking to Sung, and Sung reveals that Lore was lying about a lot of things, and Data thought he was the inferior little brother essentially, but he finds out they're actually kind of equal. Like that kind of ties into the whole theme of brothers in the episode the most. So it was the most where I really felt the Star Trek writing kind of like creeping in a good way.
It's there. It's just getting there, but it doesn't quite deliver on any of the beats that it's presenting. It knows what it wants to say, and it's trying to say it, and you can see what it's aiming for, but it's just fallen a bit short. And it's not like really bad. It's not or really disappointing or anything like that. It's just, I think, ultimately a little underwhelming by the end, but definitely not bad.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I'd sum up too. Or even if like Data was presented with a choice where he had to choose to leave to go and save the kid because his morals are right or something like that, may have been interesting. But it never really was a factor. It was just kind of like, "Oh, give me a minute to say goodbye and we can go."
Yeah, and in that sense, they didn't want to present Sung as being villainous, because he's not.
Yeah,
and forcing Data to make that choice would feel villainous, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't have. I'm not really suggesting that forcing him because Sung wants it. More just that Data has to make a choice between. Maybe even between saving him and saving the kid, but not. I don't think you have to present him as villainous to achieve that.
Sure.
I think the idea that Data would make that choice could be an interesting like moral choice that he'd have to make at the end of the episode. Because again, it's one of those things where I was joking a little bit about thinking the kid was going to be like a Die Hard kid episode, which would have been fun, but it was it's just not something I'm disappointed I didn't get. Here though, as he was lying there and the crew were kind of coming in, I thought they were going to basically not arrest Data, but kind of really be confrontational with them because of what happened. And I thought that there was going to be some sort of moral debate or some sort of like question of like what to do now, and especially the idea of like, well, we're on this time crunch, this kid's going to die, but there's maybe something important to do here. But it never really became a thing. It was just kind of like, oh no, we're wrapping it up anyway, we can go. There's nothing...
all done here, let's go save the kid.
A dramatic choice there I think would have elevated the episode as well. There's a lot of places here where I can see it being improved. I
agree. It's kind of a little like frustrating in that sense where they clearly set up the stakes with the kid, and it's is the classic ticking time bomb that Trek loves to use, in that, okay, we have to do this in X amount of time or the kid will die.
And much like traditional Star Trek, the true like excellence or the true nuance of that story would not really be the kid dying or not dying itself. It's more about what it would say about Data when he makes the right choice to save this kid over whatever personal thing he otherwise would be doing or feels like he has to do first.
But ultimately, it kind of feels a bit superfluous.
Yeah. And the scenes with the kids themselves, where they try to like have the older brother come in and talk to the younger brother in quarantine.
Yeah, not great.
Wasn't that good? No. And there's a couple of scenes I think with like Crusher talking, Beverly, that is, talking to the younger kid and saying that maybe you should forgive him, blah blah blah. All of that was just kind of like going through the motions. There wasn't really anything in those scenes in of themselves. And then the kids, the acting weren't that great. I mean, I enjoyed the interrogation scene at the start. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that was where the acting doesn't show up as much, because the kid just has to feel guilty and scared of big scary adult shouting at him, basically.
Yeah, Riker's very imposing, walking around those chairs and be like,
yeah, I bet he is.
I'm familiar with the rules of the game, son. What happened? Just little things like that. Like, yeah. That's fine. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have a whole lot more to add. Ultimately, just that, yeah, I guess it's a little bit disappointing because there was more potential, but it's not necessarily a bad episode either.
No, and I like I say, I might like it more in hindsight with how it plays into the overall arc with Data and Lore and seeing where it fits in that story. But it's too early to see that right now, obviously.
Yeah, Yeah. You know, and a lot of the action stuff at the start that we kind of glossed over. You know, there's a lot of stuff with Data turning on force fields around the ship so no one can move around.
Yeah, them trying to figure out how to use the transporter in and out.
He does the
Data's locked it all.
He does the Terminator thing where he does Picard's voice. He can like do his Picard's voice perfectly and gives this ridiculous code. I can't imagine Picard sitting down and learning this like it was like a 45-digit code.
No, he definitely has that written somewhere.
Yeah. But he puts in this code to get control or whatever. And there was actually like a crazy plan at one point where Picard was like, "Oh, I separate the saucer section at Warp 9." And even Crusher's like, you know, Wesley that is like, "Sir, we're at Warp 9, that's a bit in the danger." It says, "I'm aware of the dangers," Ensign, shut up. Like, I was like, yeah. I almost wanted to see this insane effect of them trying to like separate at Warp 9.
Yeah, luckily for them, Data overruled it.
Yes. Put a stop to that right there and then. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a lukewarm episode, but hey, they can't all be complete winners, and I think this was at least noble in its intentions, and much like season 3, you know, whatever, even if it did have one that didn't live up to the quality standard that it's really been setting over the last season or so, that at least you can see what they were trying, and you don't necessarily begrudge them the failure.
Yeah, like come the end of the season, this isn't going to be in competition for either of the best or worst episode lists, I should imagine.
Unless there's no bad episodes.
I mean, yeah, no. If this is in even contention for the worst episodes,
we've had a great season. Yeah.
Yeah, no complaints.
Exactly. All right. So what's coming next time then? Next time we've got an episode called "Suddenly Human." Is this about Data? May not be. So here's a description on IMDb. On a rescue mission to an alien shipwreck training mission, they discover one of its trainees to be human. Okay. For vague.
That gives me very little of what to expect not in a bad way, but just sometimes we read these descriptions and I have a vague idea going in. Okay, it's going to be this kind of episode. This I got nothing.
Yeah, the only thing I know for this is that the actor who's like the main guest star is from Day of the Dead, which is cool, I guess. Yeah. There you go. That's coming next time. So. Yeah, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Please do like and super important on YouTube. It's the easy and the most convenient way for you to show your support, and more people will find us as a result. But you can support us as well with money over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. So please go and have a look and see if you want any of those bonuses. And of course, you can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And remember, when it comes to the ladies, Wesley Crusher is in complete control.